it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today is day 1 in the Countdown to Christmas 2021 series, and we're going to be making this fun fold card, and I found the inspiration from Tammy Beard at Stamping Savvy. The first thing you're going to need to do is take a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches. You're going to score at 4 1/4 and 5 1/2 on the long side. And you're going to fold in at 5 1/2 to make a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card. And then on the 4 1/4 inch score mark, you're going to fold back. For the pattern paper, you cut a piece 4 inches by 5 1/8 and then cut off 1 1/8 inches. So you have a 4 by 4 square for the front mat and then a second piece that measures 1 1/8 by 4. This is a center pop-up piece and this is 6 by 6. You're going to fold it in half one way, fold it in half the other way. Then you're going to flip the paper over and score it diagonally down just one side. I made the mistake of doing both sides and that doesn't work because you need a full diamond at the top. I also make a mistake later on gluing this down, so I left most of my mistakes in because I figured you could learn from them. So to create the card base, we are going to put glue between those two score lines, which were at 4 1/4 and 5 1/2. And I'm just going to burnish the glue down to make sure that it sticks because this is going to create the opening for our card. And since it's going to be the hinge, you're going to want to make sure that it's sturdy. So you can use wet glue or tape here, but make sure you use a strong adhesive. To create the front poinsettia, we are going to be using the Winter Bouquet die set from HoneyBee Stamps. It's the HoneyBee die cut. And now we're going to decorate the interior pieces. Because I didn't have any double-sided pattern paper, I decided to take the same color red from the card base as well as the pattern paper and cut them into 1/8 of an inch smaller than the 3 by 3 squares that they were going to sit in. For the pattern paper, I took them diagonally and sliced them down so I would have 2 triangles that would fit nicely around the score line so that you could still fold the paper, but it would also be decorated. Now I'm just going to take my HoneyBee Be Creative glue and glue the pieces down, as well as check to make sure that the paper still folds. You want to make sure that you glue the paper to the inside of the score line so that you can still fold the paper. And there you go. I'm checking to make sure everything still folds and everything looks good. And now we're going to get ready to do the interior piece. So I used the Stamping Village stamp set holiday seals, and it's the Studia Katia label. And I am now using this new powder that I got along with this makeup brush. I got it off of Amazon and I wanted to see how it would work. You want to make sure that you tap off a lot of the excess powder because that brush will hold a lot of powder and you just want a little bit on your surface. Cover your surface and then go over the stamp with the Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink which the embossing powder will cling to, and then we will heat set it. So I'm using the Liquid Platinum Embossing Powder by Ranger, and I am going to heat set it with my Wagner heat tool. So I have the one that has 2 different levels, 1 and 2. I'm heating it on 2, and I'm heating from the front and the back, as you can see here, because this paper is a little bit thinner, so it can tend to warp, and I wanted to minimize the warping. Now I'm just taking a dry cloth and buffing over the top to get rid of that excess powder, and I think that it embossed beautifully. Now we're going to get to the part where I made a major mistake. This isn't it, it actually comes in a minute. I just went to glue down the red diamonds or squares, however you're looking at it. And I glued them down and that was completely fine. It's when I go to attach the piece to the front and the back that I made a major mistake and I actually glued my card shut. So I'm just adding some of that Be Creative HoneyBee glue to the square that has the red little square inside of it. And that is what's correct to do. However, I didn't have it at the right angle. What I had done is the pieces that had the triangles on them are now in the card instead of being outside of the card so they can open. So you'll see in a minute the proper way to do it versus the way that I did it. I didn't think about, I knew which square had to get glued to the top and the bottom. I just didn't know the angle that it had to be on. I had to rotate it a little bit more rather than put it in the way that I did. And you can see here that I have now successfully glued my card shut. So at this point, I'm thinking, do I have to start all over again? Oh my gosh, if I pull it off, are you going to be able to see the pattern paper that's ripped? I actually take the pattern paper off, and you can see here. See, there you go. You have to make sure that the wings, see how they're outside of the card base rather than in. I'm just going to run more HoneyBee glue. It was in the perfect spot, so I can just glue it back down to exactly where it was, put that pattern paper back down, glue that all back together, and the card will now magically work. So just be cautious of when you're gluing this piece, the pop-up piece together. Make sure that the wings are on the outside of the card like that rather than the inside, because you will glue your card shut. Lesson learned. So there you go. So the points have to go, for the red squares have to go on either side of the card, if that's easier to remember. Okay, so now it'll open and shut. Checked it a couple times before we get to start working on the front. Now this is the 4x4 piece of pattern paper, and I'm going to glue it on the front. You can see that the front looks a little bit messy, but once we put the cover on, you're never gonna know that I messed up unless you're watching the video. So all of you guys will know, but the person who gets this card probably won't. I'm going to glue that piece down, as well as the 4x1 1/8 piece that goes on the kind of like the binding of the card that we created in the beginning. And now I am taking 2 pieces of the die cuts from the Winter Bouquet from HoneyBee Stamps, and I am curling up the edges because we're going to put the poinsettia together. I used one of the larger and one of the medium size petals. Now there are 4 that come in this set, so it's nice, you can mix and match the sizes. And then I did the centerpiece, cut that out of yellow, glued everything together, and we're going to put it down on the front. And now I'm going to take the leaves and just put a tiny bit of glue on the bottom of the leaf, because I don't care if the leaf curls up. I think that gives it more dimension. And I decided I don't like where I put that second leaf and move it over a little bit. I don't know why, I felt like it just looked better down there. And then I cut out 2 of these little sprigs, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them, and I do end up gluing them back inside here. I wasn't sure if I was going to put them on the front, because in the pattern paper you can see I tried to match what was in the pattern paper. There's the poinsettias, and then there's these little like sprigs. So I thought this would be cute, kind of make it more, since the sentiment is a circle, this kind of made it look a little bit more like a circle. At least in my mind it did. I don't know. Let me know if you think so too. Now the next thing I do is I'm going to take a yellow lacquer pen. This is from Hero Arts, and just go over the middle to just give the middle just a little bit of the flat of the poinsettia, just a little bit of, let it stand out just a little bit. It'll give it a little bit of dimension as well. So I put that on and then waited for it to dry. And the last thing that I did, or I did 2 more things, I'm sorry. I took my Copic marker, which I probably should have done before the lacquer pen, because you might ruin your Copic markers if you get the lacquer pen on this. But there are lines in it that emboss, and I just took 2 different colors of red Copics and went over the lines so to make it stand out a little bit. When you first do it, the marker is dark, and every time I kind of freak out, but the marker dries back a little bit, so it just gives it a little highlight, and it's not a stark difference. And I try to pick a color that is close to or a little bit darker than the color cardstock that I have. So after I do all of that, I am going to pull out my glossy accents, because there are little berries on the pattern paper, and I just wanted to give them a little bit of a dimension as well. I don't have any red Nuvo drops, so I'm using glossy accents, which just creates a clear gloss over top of it and gives it a little bit of height. So that's the card for today. I hope that you are excited about the series and that you're going to enjoy it and that you try the cards. Let me know if you like the card down in the comments, and I will see you again real soon for the second video in the Countdown to Christmas card series. Bye!